Does my speaker not work? No, it is. It's on. Mr. Mayor, we're glad you're here. Good morning, everybody. It's 11:03, and we're going to get our meeting started. Let me call the roll. Mr. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Schultz.
Here.
Mr. Odom. Ms. Gambles.
Here.
Mr. Fields. Here. Mr. Wilson. Mr. Harville. Mr. Ramirez.
Here.
Great. 1, 2, 3. We've got a quorum, so that's good. And the mayor also counts in quorum. Do we have anyone that's going to speak today for public comment? Nobody wants to talk to us. Well, that may be good. We are now recessing an executive session in accordance with 1 VTCA Government Code 551.086 on competitive matters of LP&L, and 2 VTCA Government Code 551.071 seeking advice of and consultation with LPL's attorneys on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly reflects with Chapter 551 of the Government Code, and seeking advice of its attorneys about pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers. Mr. Mayor, do you have a quorum?
We do. Thank you, Ms. Stafford. City Council will also hold an executive session today for the purpose of consulting with the city staff regarding the following competitive matters of the public power utilities under Section 551.086 of the Texas Government Code and pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers, and hold consultation with attorney under Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code.
And we're going to the second floor, is that correct? Okay. I'll see you on the second floor. Hello, Matt.
All right, we are also in recess.
It is now 11:47, and I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Electric Utility Board back to order. And will the minutes please note that Mr. Isom is now present. On
Mr.
item
Odom.
number 4.
Mr. Odom.
Oh, did I say?
Isom.
Oh, I lost my mind for a minute. Mr. Odom, I apologize. Who is this?
Mr. Isom's bold. I want that to be noted in the minutes.
My bad. Sorry, gentlemen and ladies. Okay, number 4, Joel, is that you under our open session? Oh, sorry, I was on the wrong page. Number 5, we need to approve the minutes from our special board meeting on February 13th, the regular board meeting on February 21st, and the special electric utility meeting on March 6th. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So move.
Is there a second? Mr. Fields' motion, Mr. Schultz' second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion passes 7-0 because we have 2 absences. Now, Joel, sorry, tricked you, didn't I? What page is that? 106. Right. How do we get it there? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. If I would wake up.
Wake up. I mean, we have to keep flipping to get to 106, but I mean, is it not on the?
Eddie, if you'll, at the very bottom down there on the bottom where it shows your number, page 1, if you'll put on that little triangle, drag all the way across, you can get there a lot quicker.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Cool. We got a real technical whiz here.
It's not me, that's for sure. Anyway, just kind of talking through that, just
Just a moment, does everybody have that? Gonzalo, do you have yours?
Okay, all right. I just want to call out a couple of points.
Solomon? Okay, I think everybody's there now, Joel, thank you.
Okay. Just first thing I want to point out is that we have regular jobs, and then everything you see on this timeline is added in addition to everything that we have to do normally. This is extremely busy, and it can be overwhelming, so you just got to kind of dissect it in each one of those flowchart pieces that goes to the right. In the market transaction piece of it, our business office has been doing a really great job of making their accomplishments, making their timelines. In spite of our best efforts to keep them from it, they're doing a great job, and I think you'll hear a little bit more about that as we go. But they're getting ready to do the flight testing in the market, so we have something like 96 participants lined up to do testing with us, and they're going to make sure that we can do transactions, interagency type transactions with each other, and this all has to work electronically for it to go right. And that's all brand new. We've never had to do anything like that before. So they're doing a great job of getting these things ready, and we're going to make sure that that works well. In the legislative piece, you'll hear a little bit more about this too, but our two bills that we've got going through each house, the House and Senate, they're moving right along.
Joel, did you say 96 are lined up for testing?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny way the way that works. We're going to test really, I think, and maybe are we going to talk about that in a little bit? Are you? I can. Okay, yeah. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But we wind up doing a really thorough amount of testing with about 5. And then the rest of them are just, can we communicate with each other? Because if it works, it works. And it's going to work with everyone. So I had the same reaction as Mr. Fields as you did. When I first heard that, it's like we're going to be here for 2 years trying to get these things knocked out. But it's not going to be quite that onerous. In the market and customer rules section, obviously we've got the polar selections completed. We're getting ready to file the TCOS and get that all running and going. Hopefully we can get a little bit of a delay. As you can imagine, we've got a lot on our plates just going through this year. So we have asked for a delay, and hopefully that's would be approved, but we've got that filed and going. The pro forma tariff is hopefully moving again. We believe it's set to be voted on 23rd, which I think is Thursday. Mr. Matt Rose is going to dispatch himself to Austin and go down for a couple of things, a hearing on the 2 bills, as well as be ready to support this pro forma tariff proposal. We worked with the staff of the PUC because they're just inundated. They're still playing catch up from COVID, believe it or not, but they are just inundated. So they worked with us very well, and we worked with them to set up a market feedback process so that people could weigh in on the changes that we felt like we needed in this pro forma tariff. This particular tariff is PUC jurisdictional, and it governs the relationships and the way that we do business between us and the REPs. And because we're the first municipal utility to join the market, the rules that were originally written in 1999 really didn't pass muster with us. And so we had several things that we need to get changed, and so far that is going very well. And I just can't say enough good things about the PUC staff, how they've worked with us on this. But hopefully that's going to be approved on the 23rd, and off we go. On the transfer of the remaining load, we did get that voted on and approved by the Public Utility Commission, our application to transfer the load, and then their approval of the settlement agreement. So we're looking forward to a good outcome at FERC, and we believe that'll be on or about the 23rd of April. If all goes according to plan, it'll be that date or sooner, actually. That will keep us pretty much on schedule. We can afford to slide a little bit if we had to, but we don't want to. But we may be looking at mid-June at the worst-case scenario at this point to transfer that load. And I think that's still okay. So just keep your eyes peeled on this. Mr. Weingart is keeping this timeline updated, and we're going to be marking everything complete. But this is the year that all this stuff happens. This is the culmination of the 5+ years of planning and work that this organization has been doing in order to get ready for this point in time in this year. So things are going to be happening. The dominoes are going to be falling. Madam Chair, I would stand for any questions for me or anybody else on staff regarding things generally. Other than that, we'll step into the other
Does
presentations.
anyone have any questions? Eddie?
Mr. Ivy, when you said June, is that pretty much on schedule, is what we planned?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Our original plan was like on or about Memorial Day to have that 30% customer load all transferred.
And then the additional customer load that's been transferred to 30%, I guess you guys will start putting it out there to the citizens that that's going to happen.
Mr. Rose is working on the kind of the same aspects that we use for customers in the original transfer of load. So we will be doing that so people can look up their meters and things like that.
And what part of the city does that affect mainly?
That is a great question. I hadn't been here a year yet. I don't know that I know the exact answer to that, but it's definitely the old SPS facilities that we had purchased back in 2006, if that helps. No, it doesn't help me either.
Do we know how many, I know it's 30% of load, do we know how many total customers is it?
Yeah, so we're 106 to 110,000 customers, so 30% of that is going to be about 35,000, give or take. Okay.
Primarily downtown then?
I'm sorry?
Primarily downtown?
No, it's, yeah, okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
And are you talking about the, which customers is gonna hit? Like over in Rush even, there's still 2 lines running on those, and whenever electricity goes out, your neighbor's lights may be off and yours are on, so I think it's, one of the numbers we've looked at is kind of just all across Lubbock. I don't think there's a true area from,
Not just a straight,
not a straight,
yeah.
probably the older neighborhoods, I would say, if anything, would be more the ones, but I mean.
So
I know
it's a
mine-
patchwork is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 7, thank you, Joel. We'll give you a crash course in neighborhoods sometime.
Fair enough.
Casey, I understand you're a bride, is that correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
Congratulations, we're so glad you're back from the honeymoon.
Thank you, me too.
The numbers are always there, aren't they?
Yes, ma'am. All right, well, we're going to take a look at our January financials. So on our balance sheet, you can see that our cash did increase about $850,000. We also see an increase of $3.2 million on a receivable. That's mainly going to be due to our meter revenue accrual being higher than it was in December. And then you'll also see our under-collected position is continuing to decrease. If you look at our cash flows just for the month of January, you can see our operating cash flow increased by $2.3 million. The majority of that is going to be due to us collecting on the under-collected position at year end. And in our financing activities, you can see that we are at a negative $5.2 million. That's going to be due to our CIP spending. $4.4 million of that will be refunded by bonds in February. And then in our investing activities, you see an increase of $3.9 million, and that's going to be from refunds on bonds for December CIP spending. Going back to the balance sheet, we do see a slight decrease in our total liabilities. That's going to be due to a decrease in our payables. It's going to be offset by an increase in our accrued interest payable. Overall, our total net position is up $3.2 million, and that's just from December to January. So from year end, we're at $5.3 million in our net position. Looking at our ratios, our days cash on hand did decrease slightly, but we're still over our 90-day target. Our operating ratio did decrease from 8.6 to 8.4. This ratio tells us for every dollar of revenue how much we're spending in expenses, so a decrease in this ratio is a good thing. And then in our current ratio, we see an increase from 2.01 to 2.08, and that's going to be due to the increase in our assets being greater than the increase in our liabilities, so it pushed that number up. Okay, we're going to move on to the income statement to budget. So in January, we should be at 33% of our budget. You can see in our departmental expenses, our purchase power and our charges for services, we're all sitting around 30%, so a little under budget on those. Our ERCOT and hold harmless payment and our T-cost revenue are right at 33% as they should be. And I wanted to point out that I did add a bar for our overall operating income so y'all can see where we are. So at this point in the year, we're at 40% of the budget for our overall operating income. Do y'all have any questions for me on any of this?
Does anyone have any questions? That operating income bar is very helpful.
Good. All right, well, thank y'all.
Harvey, are you going to add anything, or that was just, you just want to make Joel move?
No, I just, no, go ahead. Yeah, Larry, you're I jumped in, bringing in the lefty. Oh, my goodness.
Blair, are you going to be handling number 8 on the agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So there's not, I don't have any slides or anything, but I'm going to just give kind of a brief overview of what was discussed during the Technical Review Committee meeting on March the 6th. The information that was presented is primarily pages 59 to, I believe, 77 in your book. And I'll go back to one of the questions that was asked Mr. Ivey a while ago. Where are the customers in our system that are going to be transferred? If you'll look on page 65 and 66, there is a map that shows some colored areas. Current configuration SPP 15 kV customers. And on the next page, there is current configuration SPP 23 kV customers. Those are the primary areas that are.
Is that the one on page 67 we're looking at? The future configuration on the low boot.
Yeah, current configuration SPP 15 kV. And then current configuration SPP 23 kV. Those two drawings, they show circuits that are colored, different colors. And
Mr. Blair, is that old area that SPS used to have restricted?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay.
You're welcome. So the Technical Review Committee talked about 6 different topics. We talked about LPNL system as a whole, just kind of an overview. We talked about the 30% cutover, what the plan is. We talked about a 4 kV system. We talked about another topic was the communication of outages between LPNL and ERCOT. Jamie Wood gave that short little presentation. We talked a little bit about the warehouse. So basically, we spent a couple of hours going over those topics. You know, we enjoyed the opportunity to present and enlighten the board members to what we do on a day-to-day basis. We'd be glad to give it again if need be, but that's it basically in a short nutshell.
Blair, 2 points I want to make. Number one, the 30% transition, you're estimating it could be over 4 days, is that correct?
3 to 4 days is what we're estimating.
Okay, and
at this
again,
time.
that 30 minutes to an hour potentially?
30 minutes, we say that, I think the previous 70% cutover, we had an average of 16-minute outage for
all customers, some were a little more, some were a little less. Things go as planned, it'll be 30 minutes or less.
Right. And then just to comment, those of you that came to this meeting, it's one of the best meetings of a summary of LPNL that I've ever seen, and I would encourage everybody, it's in your minutes, all of the slides that they presented. It was very helpful, and Mr. Harville did a very good job, and your staff. So Blair, thank you, and all of your staff. It was well done.
Thank you. Most are here today. Luke Miller, Cody Morris, Tom Fox, Jamie Wood works for Clint, but yes, they were very pleased to get up and give that information.
Thank you. And I think you did offer that anybody that wanted to see the EOC or kind of Tom's World, they can certainly get with you and schedule that time. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Tom's World is something going all the time.
He keeps it fairly secret, too.
Thank you.
Blair? Blair?
Thank you.
Last time, the restaurants and all those folks were worried about the cutovers during rush hour or rush lunches and all that stuff. Same thing happens this time?
Yes, sir. We'll primarily do it during the day when we've got adequate resources to be able to handle any kind of issues.
But yeah, down 30 minutes, worst case, hopefully.
Yes, sir.
And regardless of being 70% or 30%, it's the same process. Just hopefully it gets quicker because.
Correct.
Okay.
It's a distribution cutover this time. Last time it was more substation and transmission level. This time it'll be smaller segments of customers that are cut over.
Thanks, sir.
4 to 5 days, yes.
Thank you, Blair, and all of your staff. And I know you're working, I guess we're going to hear from Luke a little bit later on and see if everything's in place.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Number 9 on the agenda. That was, you just got, oh, here he comes. You've got all the folks that want to move, that want to bring retail to Lubbock, right, Clint?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me up here. First of all, I'd like to say, just give kudos to everyone who has worked on this from, I've been here for a year now, and my team especially has really worked nonstop on this. After hours, late hours, extra time, just everything it took, plus the regular jobs that they have to do. So, kudos to the business office group, to Jenny and Tom and Beatrice for all that they've done. They've really put in a lot of hours. To Blair and his group, Chris, everything that's been involved in this has taken a lot of work, and it's taken a lot of people to do it. And personally, I just want to say thank you to all of them. It sure made my job easier coming in new like this to have a group that's stood up and stepped up and did what they were supposed to do. So they were fantastic. Just to give you a little update on where we're at. We are continuing to set up our market operations team. Jamie Wood is the manager of market operations. She has now hired 4 people to be on the retail electric provider account managers. And we are finishing up, hopefully this week, to get the 4 market specialists who will be joining the team so we can get started training and get started doing what we need to be doing with them. So anyway, that should be done this week. It's taken some time. We had to send some things back to HR a couple of times, mainly because just to get some job descriptions down exactly right. But anyway, we're getting that done this week, and we should have at least offers made to everybody on the team. So we're excited about that. Excuse me.
Mr. Donner, let me interrupt you for just a second. Are these in-house hires or are these from outside?
These are in-house. These are the ones who's mainly been working on the project team.
Okay.
I mean, we've accepted applications across the city of Lubbock, the business office, the Hill, everything. Even people who weren't on the project team, you know, we got really just not a whole lot of applications except the ones who's been on the project team. But we know who they are, we know what they're capable of, and we're very happy with them. Just one sad thing to report is that the Oracle project manager who has been working with us on this project, he's in his early 50s, and he just passed away suddenly a couple of weeks ago. So anyway, it just, you know, just kind of devastated everybody on the team, and it was just kind of a sudden happening. We don't really know what happened, but anyway, we've reached out to all of them, especially Oracle team and also to his family. But they've already put somebody in his place that we're working with that was very familiar with the project. So we didn't slow down any, it just kept going. So that's always a good thing. We are working right now on our customer protection rules, which will be the next thing that come into to this process for us, and we are getting everything accomplished on the customer protection rules. We're working with the engineering right now on getting a lot of their finished products, so that will be great. We'll have that and the delivery service pricing to y'all hopefully by we'll have it to you at your meeting in April, I believe, and somebody can correct me if that is wrong. But we will be through with everything just the first few days of April with the customer protection rules. Let's see, the flight testing. Right now we have 96 retailers that are flight testing with us. And that doesn't mean that they're doing full flight testing. There's about 5 or 6 that are doing the full testing. A lot of these retailers, you have to understand, are subsidiaries of the big mamas out there that are really doing a lot of the work. So anyway, if it works with these, we know that it's going to work with everybody else. So we have 96 retailers that signed up. We are in the process of doing the flight testing now. It could go into all the way to May 5th if we need it to. 5 retailers are participating in the full testing. The D-reps, the load serving entity, we have those doing it. A lot of these retailers that are testing are using the same gateway that we do, the EDI gateway, which will do the penny testing, which transferring the money, which is exactly what we want. I mean, it's very, very good. I think one of them use a different vendor, but it's all the same and it's working. It will work good. I mean, we haven't started the penny testing yet, but we have reports from everybody that the EDI gateway will be very successful also. You know, we're working on, right now what I'm doing is I'm working on internal communications with our business office. When people call in and asking questions, what we need to do to get them to the information, and we're working to update all of that to get to them. I'll leave the rest of the education materials to Matt to talk about, but really that's all I have to update you on. Does anybody have any questions?
Just so I understand, the flight testing of the 5 or 6 people, that's what ERCOT does, and they do that 3 times a year. Then the other 96, or they may be in that 96, they do connectivity testing and penny testing.
That's correct.
The money goes like this and they can connect. So that will be done for all 96.
That's correct. Well, the penny testing, you know, the penny testing, I don't think everybody will do the penny testing, you're correct. Okay. But now as far as the 96, they will be doing testing, but they may not be doing the full.
They won't be doing the flight.
The
I think
full
it's called
flight testing.
Connectivity testing. It's
Right.
kind of a step down from
That's
the flight.
correct. That is
Because
correct.
The flight testing is an ERCOT.
Everybody will be doing the flight testing.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there
Any other questions?
Any other questions? That's a bunch of people on the REPs, 96.
It is.
Did that exceed your expectations?
It's just about where we thought it would be, to be honest with you. You know, we were, at one time, they told us around 100, and then they thought, well, if we'll be doing good, get 50 to 60. But then it came into 96, so I was fixing to say Tahoka's popular. Lubbock is a very popular market to be getting into, so we have a lot of interest in it, and people are ready to come.
So everybody wants to dance with Joel, right?
That's right. That's right.
Thank you so much, Clint.
Thank you.
Matt, are you up next?
I think so.
Are you a part of 9?
Yes.
Clicker's not plugged in, Matt, sorry.
Oh, it's, how do I go back?
They're just the arrows.
Okay. All right. So I've got a few slides. I won't go into all the details of all of them, but I kind of wanted to put them up here to kind of walk through showing you where we are at communications at this point and where we're going to be going over the next 6 to 9 months. So as we've talked a lot just up front, we're going to look exclusively today at kind of earned media and owned media. Earned media is news stories that get played on KCBD, Everything Lubbock, or run in the AJ. Owned media is where we use our own social posts, our own website, controlled content to put messaging out. So I just highlight that obviously this past month we focused a lot on the safety net providers, the Polar, the DREP, the VREP designations that y'all and the council made. I think we got some really good coverage in terms of letting folks know that there will be something that will happen if somebody doesn't choose. I think that's an important part of this process. And our social posts obviously have focused a lot on retail competition, but we still continue to do public safety message, down power lines this time of year is important to get out there, things like that. We want to continue communicating that at the same time we're communicating about this project. So moving to the second page, sorry, just focus on, we did have a downtick in news stories, but overall in the month of February, we still had 14 news stories that focused on ERCOT and competition. So even though we kind of hit it hard the last part of 2022 and kind of got a record number of news stories, took a break a little bit in January. We're ramping that back up, but we're still getting a lot of coverage out there just naturally from things like designating the Polar and us continuing to put stuff out on social. So in terms of our own media highlights, would point out that retail competition saw a slight decrease where ERCOT saw a slight increase this month, but you'll still see on the chart that retail competition, we had over 1,500 page views in February. And so we're still tracking above our normal average in terms of how many people are going to these websites and engaging with us, which is something that we're going to continue to focus on and track. In terms of social media posts, the website, we've really done a lot of work building out the FAQs. I think that's a kind of a good base to work off of because a lot of the materials that we'll make in terms of handouts will be built off these FAQs. I take a lot of information. Clint has started his Coffees with Clint series with internal employees, and we're taking a lot of the feedback and the questions that we're getting from our own staff and pushing those outward because if our own staff has certain questions, we know the public is going to have those same questions. And as we start doing town halls and district meetings more regularly, we'll take questions that we get from audiences that are not covered in those FAQs and continue to build those out. In terms of social posts, we're still putting out a lot of posts on the retail market along with normal course of business. One thing that I would point out is that if you look at that chart in terms of where it says organic versus boosted, The difference there is that if I put up something about down power lines, I'm going to let that run on social media as it normally would. If I put something out about retail competition or ERCOT, I'm going to pay some money so that I can boost that so it's in everybody's feed. And the nice thing about that sponsored content is that it's not just folks that follow us, it's people all over Lubbock, but it also continues to recycle through their news feed. So a lot of times there's the thought of, let's put out a post on competition every single day. What ends up happening is you end up having your post cross and it's harder to control. So it's better to have kind of several major posts throughout a month period, boost those so they continually get in people's feed, and then we regard the comments and the suggestions that we get in that like somebody calling into the call center. You know, if they have a problem with their service, we're interacting with them in a customer service level. But if it's just about ERCOT, we're directing them to where they can find more information or answering their questions in the thread. So we're using that as a live back and forth with these boosted social posts that stay out there and continue to cycle through everybody's feed. Bill onserts, really since March of 2022, we have had, you know, the Power to Choose is coming as a bill onsert in everybody's bill, English and Spanish. We're going to continue to do so through the end of this project. I would guess that as we get into this next month, you'll see some content about the 30% cutover that Blair was talking about, because we still need to do education on that, obviously, because it's going to be something that will disrupt people's service, and we want to make sure that they know what's going on. I don't know that it's going to be disruptive as the first step of this with the 70% that was cut over, just simply because that was coming 90 days after Winter Storm Uri. There was a lot of anxiety, and we'd never done something like this before. It helps this time to be able to point to the last procedure and say, we're running it the same way. We're going to put together the lookup tool that Joel mentioned, where folks can go on, type in their meter number that they see on their bill and see if they're affected or not and when they're affected. I think that was very useful the first time. But mostly, it's just reminding folks that we've been through this before. This is the last step in this process. And once we get that 30% over, then the public message will be consistently that 100% are now in ERCOT, and we now have this hard countdown to choosing your new provider and transitioning to that new provider in the fall of 2023. You've seen this before. I'm going to continue to show you this as we track along, but this and the next slide show all the different ways that we're communicating. This slide shows it going from March of 2022 until October of 2023. I have the two red bands there signifying the shopping window. Right now, that shopping window is set to be in August, not in July, but I'm keeping that where it is right now because come July, that's essentially to me in the shopping window. We're within 30 days, and we need to be out there every single day hammering home the message of what folks need to do. And you'll see in there, right at the bottom, we have customer shopping and open houses. One of the things we've said is that holding several open houses at, say, the Civic Center with the new reps present is going to be really good in terms of really broadcasting to folks, hey, come out to the Civic Center on Saturday, meet your new providers, gather information, and then hopefully sign up right there on the spot. And so that's why I've got those positioned within the shopping window. It may be deemed necessary for us to have one big introductory open house before we get to shopping. But I think the most beneficial will be when we can tell customers, if you will come out on Saturday, we'll give you all the information you need, and you can do whatever you need to do right then and there in terms of signing up for new service. So that's how we're kind of planning it out right now. And then, like I say, this is the same information, just presented a little bit differently in terms of just listing out all of the different ways that we're going to be communicating and talking about when those are going to start taking place. I would point out towards the bottom of that where you have Kuber messages, CSR messages, direct mail, all customer emails. We'll also be utilizing those in terms of the 30% cutover. Plan on doing like we did last time, where we mail a postcard to every single one of our customers that says, you know, this is happening, you may be affected, go to our website to look up that information. If somebody, we did this last time, if somebody just calls into the call center, the CSRs will have access and be aware of that lookup tool that they can help that customer get that information. But as much as we possibly can through various different marketing, and news stories. We want to drive folks that can to our website to look it up themselves. And while they're there, remind them that while you're doing this, go take a look at the competition page so that you can get prepared for that as well. Last thing I'll show you is this sheet here, which is something that I've worked with Harvey on, but I want to continue tracking and putting in your book as we go forward. This is just media stories and page views. And what it's looking at is the fiscal year comparisons, 22 versus 23. And on the right side there, looking at what we're generally forecasting in terms of our target, and then trying to exceed that. So you'll see that for media stories in the top right, you know, we've been looking at maybe 10 stories a month. We've been going way above that. Page views, the same thing, but as we get into July, August, September, we normally see a little over 120,000 page views. So it'd be my expectation that we will far exceed that as we get into the summer months. But this is just one way that I'm going to kind of track what we think we need to hit if we're getting the word out, and whether or not people are actually coming to our website, whether we're actually getting the news stories that we need to get the message out. And there's probably other ways to forecast and show this, but for right now, this is probably what I'll start with in terms of putting in your book so that y'all can track it on a monthly basis and see how we're doing. So that's a quick run through of what we're doing. I know everybody's excited, anxious, however you want to describe it about this process, but it's about to really get underway starting this next month. Sorry, last thing I'll mention is that I've been working with the city manager and council members to tell them that as y'all start having district meetings, please include us on the agenda so we can get out there and talk to your constituents. Councilmember Sheila Patterson Harris, I'm going to attend a meeting that she's looking to have on Monday. We'll have another one within about a month's time frame, and I know that we've talked a lot about trying to combine forces in that effort as well. So any groups that y'all come across that you want to send along, please do that. And I'm going to have to carve it up a little bit. And so I'm working with Clint and Jamie, folks that they've normally worked with, the realtors or the multi-property owners, trying to maybe split up these assignments so that we've got folks going to all these meetings and it's a familiar face out there talking to them so they know they can interact and get the information they need. So,
have we set a date for the Civic Center, if there's going to be a time on a Saturday?
I have not. In a very general sense, James Brown and various people told him that we're going to need the AV capabilities in these things. Have not said it because I've just been waiting to make sure that we have a concrete date on those shopping windows, which I believe that we have now, being August 2nd. Just want to make sure that I don't set a date and then it shifts. But I think we're at that moment where we can set those dates and reserve the space.
And how do we plan on disseminating that information to the community?
Through bill inserts, probably do a full insert in your bill. So it's an additional page, but again, trying to catch people's attention, putting messages up on Kuber when they log into their account, doing press releases and news stories, and then our website for sure, city's website, and then incorporating those into, like, say, the animated videos that we continue to make and put on social media, a big social media blast. The answer to your question is all the different ways we can, but those are specifically some of the things we're going to do.
Thank you, Matt.
And also, I should say this, working with our media partners so that when we get up to this, telling folks, bring the news cameras out, make this an event, but frankly, also talking to all of the reps and some of those larger reps and telling them not only is this an opportunity to meet your new customers and sign folks up, but also a pretty good opportunity for you to advertise and market. So get out there and buy local media space and everybody attract people to coming out on these 2 or 3 dates. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Rose, did you say the shopping guide is on schedule for April?
Yes.
Okay.
And like I say, would like to lock in dates and do all of these things before I start printing these out and publishing them, but I probably will have to have a couple of versions, as I'm sure some dates or specific information will change, but got to get something concrete out there April 1st so that we can start passing these booklets out and doing things like I want to work with the libraries so that we can get this information possibly to the libraries so that folks that want to
So hard copies will be available in April?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's the goal.
Hey, Matt, my suggestion, you do what you want, but I would do it before into school if you're going to have that big meeting because you're going to lose lots of people in June and July.
You turn in terms of the open houses? Or the,
Just your overall meeting that you're going to have at the Civic Center.
okay. The one issue, and it's one of these that we've talked about doing one before the window opens. You know, one of the fears we've had is to put a lot of promotion and invite a bunch of folks out, and then they get out there and the reps aren't there, or they can't do anything, and that frustration. But to your point, I think we need to hit a lot of these, because one group that's going to be very challenging are tech students, because we've looked at that. You know, those folks move in July and August, and they're going to have a complicated two-step in that they're going to have to sign up for utility service with the city and us, while at the same time picking the rep, and they get transitioned. So I'm also looking at ways to get in front of folks at Texas Tech this summer as students are coming back in as well, for that very reason. Yeah. But we'll get there. You know, the nice thing is that y'all have set up a structure that if we miss some folks, because I always tell y'all, we'll throw this out as many ways as we can. We're going to miss people. But at the end of the day, they're going to have a good, reputable provider that will be there to catch them if they don't choose. But just selfishly, I want to get as many people to choose as I can to show that we've gotten through and folks are already making that affirmative choice. So.
Mr. Rose, a couple of questions about notification to our current customer base, particularly maybe a small percentage of our customers that may have payment arrangements. For the budget billing customers, we did a catch-up. How will we do that for those that are on payment arrangements?
Yeah, we're going to continue to still work with our customers, and so a lot of that's going to be a case-by-case basis, but we want customers to know that we're going to continue working with them, and so I'm going to need to incorporate that in all of the transitional stuff that we send out there to say, you know, customers, as we go through the summer, we will be working with you. If we get to a point in time where we make an adjustment to the PCRF going into summer, we'll put out a press release on that, and it'll certainly include all of the different ways that we're working folks. And then on-certs, we'll continue to utilize those as much as we can, because, you know, you're right, this can be the first summer that we don't have that subset of customers on budget bill. And so for a lot of folks, this will be the first kind of full summer bill that they're paying that's not smoothed out through the year. So we're going to continue to need to educate and work with folks on that for sure.
Okay. Will there be some type of notification regarding deposits?
We will at some point have to send out how we're going to handle that. We're going to need to notify all customers. I think there's going to be a series of mass customer mailings where we have to send out and say, this is how we're handling deposits if they're on file, things of that nature, because we will have to notify everybody how we're going to return deposits when we get to the end of the line.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
the reason
That for
why I
sure we
mention
have
that,
to.
because if they have a
Yeah.
deposit with the city and then their service provider is asking for a deposit, I would think some customers would want us to try to transfer, which of course we can't do. So how we procedurally handle that with the customer, or let them know up front.
Yeah.
They'll get a deposit back if they have a credit balance or something of that nature.
Yeah, we're gonna need to be able to put that process out there. To your point, you know, if you've got a customer that has a deposit on their bill because, you know, they've been disconnected to these types of things, or they're carrying a balance, and that has to be carried all the way through to the end, we're still gonna have to return whatever deposit is owed to them, and we need to be able to tell them how we're gonna do it. Is it, you know, is it a check? Is it a credit on your account? Those types of details, we're going to be required to tell them this is the process. So that will probably be a standalone press release and education campaign towards the end of this to let folks know. That's a good point. Yeah.
I think close to my last question, special accounts, and this probably maybe more of a Clint question. One time he was working with some of the apartment complexes, some of the large commercial customers, doing special things for them as far as billing. How are we going to notify them, and have we done that?
That account support group is still working with those multi-property groups on a daily basis. So they have been communicating. I know we've been invited out to speak to their group, I think this month, and I think Clint, Jamie, and myself are going to go do that because we told them that, you know, we'll assist them through that market operations group, letting them know what they need to get done for their properties, because that's a difficult group, just like the multifamily, the apartment complexes.
Strip malls.
Strip malls, those are going to be tough. And as we've talked about, some of these small businesses, that'll kind of fall back on me, but how do you communicate and educate those small businesses in terms of how they choose? So those are some of the things that I'm still working out in terms of residential. To a certain extent is easier because you're looking at cost, you're looking at type of fuel, but if you're a small business, it may be more complicated. So working with the PUC language on that too to try to get educational materials out. And then again, the chamber has sent out to all the members of theirs to say that we've hired somebody, and if you want to come work with us and this person, they'll help you along this process. We're hoping that some of these kind of trade organizations or groups, that we can partner with them so that they can get information to their members and their member lists as well as we go through this.
Okay.
So,
I think this is my final question. Have we done any in-house calculation of bills comparing kilowatts, let's say, of a person's bill with our default provider?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so. And I know that through their being designated that they're required to offer market-based rates over those, I think it's a 30-month contract, 3 months that they'll serve, but I don't think that we've got analysis to where our prices are now. What I do know is that if you look at the competitive market in Midland or Abilene right now, that pricing has followed the natural gas pricing, and somebody that's choosing in those markets can get a better price deal than they get with LP&L today. Just because we've seen some of the prices go down in the market. It would be my hope that those prices stay down as people start choosing so they can lock in those deals.
Well,
But we'll have to
ultimately,
see
where
how
I'm
it goes.
going with this is, can we tell our customers that their bill will go up or go down?
As it is right now, and this is just one snapshot in time, the average person that went out and chose today in our kind of neighboring markets would probably get a better price deal than they get with us. But it's hard to tell where natural gas pricing is going to go over the next 9 months. But then ultimately, my answer always to you is it's based off your house and off of consumption and your personal habits. So you'll always hear me say that. But at least for right now, there's an advantage in the competitive market if they were to go at this specific moment in time.
Hey, Matt, did you want to?
Yes, just really quickly, how are we going to measure our success? What metrics are we going to go by to know whether or not we were proactive enough or just far too reactive with this whole switch?
I think from my end in my area, what we're doing is I'm looking at trying to, by large numbers, beat the active engagement I would normally get in a summer month or a fall or a spring month. So if we normally get 120,000 people that just go to our website at large in, say, June or July, but we're seeing that huge numbers are going to not just our website, but the specific pages, I think I can gauge that customers are actively coming to our website. Joel and I have talked about the fact that overall, our guess is that about 30,000 customers won't choose. So selfishly, I'm trying to beat that number, but that's kind of a mark that I've set. And then it's just, are our media partners, are these folks actively engaging? I think through the end of this and as we carry over into the first 6 months of their choosing, I think that you're naturally going to have a lot of folks that say, I didn't hear about this or didn't know what to do. But I think the best that we can do is just base it off of historically what kind of engagement rate we've gotten from our customers, and are we substantially beating that as we get in. I think if we go into the summer months and we're not seeing those numbers go up, then we're not reaching new people. We're only reaching the people that normally pay attention to our communication thread. We're also going to do a few things like putting surveys on our website and looking at outside entities even to gauge customer engagement on this, so that we can just have another way of looking at it. So it's not just our website, but it's maybe doing a scientific survey to see, have you heard about this? Have you done something about this? Are you aware of what you need to do? And that will probably help us to know if we need to put in one last final push, or if what we're doing is reaching who we need it to reach. But just trying to find as many ways as I can survey this as I can as we go through. So.
Hey, Matt, on your metrics that you use to track, will you be reporting back to us, like, if we have 100,000 customers, how many is already moved into a different system? And where those went, like, a percentage went to Reliant and a percentage went to wherever?
I don't-
Will we be able to see that?
I would be guessing if I said that yes, we could tell where they went. My hope is that as we go through this process, that we can have some sort of, this number of customers have chosen. I just don't know that specificity.
No, we're not going to do that.
Okay.
We're not report on where they went because that's probably insider trading type stuff.
Yeah, but I didn't know if there may be, and I just don't know this, there may be a way to just gauge how many people have gone out and chosen a provider.
I would think that would be a good one, because that tells you they're actually choosing to exercise their choice.
Mhm. And so, from my end, if we can accurately gauge that, 100% we will. I just don't, it's easy for me to promise that because I'm not the one doing the technical work. So I just need to make sure of that. But if we can, I think that's a very meaningful metric, probably the most meaningful, if that's something we can do.
Yeah, it'd just be nice to know if you've got 100,000 at the end of July, you've got 60% there or whatever,
And it's interesting because we know right now that we've got a lot of, brokers that are already engaging in the large, folks in our system. But you also have to realize that while that's a large load content, it's not necessarily a large customer. So, the large customers may make up 50% of our load, but they only make up 15% of our actual customers. And so those folks are I'm hearing every day, just anecdotally, that various brokers are working with them and already trying to, even if they can't officially sign them up, trying to establish relationships with them, kind of intent type letters. But hopefully, like I say, we can start actually seeing who converts and who doesn't in real time.
When a customer chooses, XYZ customer rep is going to notify Lubbock Power and Light that we picked up this line, right? And then that 60-day billing cycle is where there's a lag, I guess, from you're still paying LP&L, and then eventually you're using their electricity.
So the way the process is going to work, with the REPs will notify us that they've got such and such customer ready to move over. And then in August, we'll actually start that process. We're not going to move anybody.
Right.
Or at least put it into the system until August. So the move doesn't really happen. I don't really want to talk about the specific companies because I don't want this to be a popularity contest where people go with whoever's getting the most. They need to make their own decisions on their own basis. So that would be the only reason I wouldn't want to do that, sir.
Yeah, and I don't, not necessarily advocating from that standpoint, just be interested to know as a board, if 10% went to Reliant or 20%, that was my only question. If you can't do it, that's fine.
It's not can't. I think it would be a matter of should we, right? In a situation like this, we were trying to get people to make their own decisions. I like Reliant. I think they're a great company, and all the other ones too, for that matter. And I want everybody to have an equal shot, but I also want a lot of competition here. I don't want to chase anybody off because we do something like that. Okay.
But as far as the customer goes, they're not going to do anything other than just keep paying a bill, and then next XYZ bill is going to show up on September or October, whatever date the whole line's up, and then they start paying that.
Right. So well, as we said before, all things being equal, we're right on time. November 1, they'll be on they'll be receiving energy from the alternate provider.
I'm coming from the banking aspect, I guess. Whenever I pay whoever I choose, I'm going to set up my ACH. And at some point, that cycle, it's just going to set the ACH up, and it's going to auto-debit my account and move on down the road. And then to come to LP&L and turn that off. And
right. Those reps will be setting that up with you in advance. You'll receive your first bill usually 30 days after you sign up and start taking power from them.
That's more for the smoothness of the process of where I'm trying to come from.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just willing to push the envelope here about the request to know what providers are being selected by the customer base. Just for our internal information purposes only. This is not information to be shared with the public.
Yeah. I don't know that I can keep it a secret is the issue, since we're a public agency. If we're going to be providing, we got to provide it to everybody. Because I don't really see that as trade secret information that we got to keep under wraps. Now, I understand what you're saying, and I'm not going to say that we won't do it, But let's think about whether or not that would be the right thing to do. That's all I would suggest. If the board tells me that's what you want me to do, well, that's what I'll do. But I'd just soon,
I think the most important factor is to know what % of our load has made a decision.
yeah.
And I think the other kind of safety net is that if people don't choose, and Lubbock is notoriously famous for sliding into church just 2 minutes before the service starts,
Yeah.
that there will be a certain amount, no matter what we do, will simply go to those default providers. And I think that we did the appropriate thing by choosing 3 very capable companies to be, that they will be assigned to.
Yep.
So I think we have to kind of tiptoe through this, and I think that competition is important, that we keep upper level numbers, that we're doing a good job so people have that choice. But I think that the backstop that we put in is also a good mechanism.
We will give you all the information that we can so that we can know that there's activity happening, and so we know how well the communications outreach is going, this kind of thing. And then if we want to push it further, let's have that conversation. That'd be my request to the board.
Right, but that retailer could, then they could go, rah, I got so many. So if it came from the retailer, that's a whole different ballgame than coming from us.
I can't stop that.
Right.
We good?
Any other questions? Great question, spirited. It looks like, Joel, as you started out, that graphic that showed all the things that we were doing, how busy the staff is, from the cutover and the communication and everything that Matt is doing such a beautiful job in Austin for us. A special thanks to all of the staff. Y'all are very hardworking, and your teamwork and congeniality and collegiality with each other makes it all possible.
Thank you. Thank you. There you go.
Number 10, Joe, is that you? You going to ask us to make a budget amendment? Did they nominate you to do this?
Yeah, they brought me to bring the bad news, but good afternoon again. So this item number 10 is a request for a budget amendment to increase our fleet and vehicle capital project. Again, this is an annual project, so our vehicles are reviewed annually by our purchasing manager and the fleet manager, so they know what we need to replace, any vehicles that are old or have high maintenance or anything like that. So it's really not a total overall increase in our budget. It's just moving the monies that were budgeted for next year, moving them forward to this year's appropriation, which means they have to be in our budget in order for us to go out for an RFP or anything like that. And the reasoning for it is just the timing of it. Our vehicles, we used to get them within 10 to 12 months lead times. Now they're 1 to 2 year lead times. So that's the reason, if we wait till October 1st when the new monies are appropriated, then that just kind of delays the process in getting these vehicles in here. Again, the cash flow on this, the money doesn't go out until the vehicles are on the ground in our possession. It's just a mechanism that we have to appropriate and fund that money before we go out and have the authorization of the board before we go out and actually buy the vehicles as well. And I'm sorry, any questions?
I was going to make a motion.
There's a motion by Mr. Odom to amend the budget as presented by Joe. Sorry.
Second.
And there's a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion passes 7-0. Oh, Jenny?
While he's walking up, I couldn't hear the second.
Second was Mr. Davis. Harvey, now you get to come up. We're saving you.
I was so
nearly the
excited to
end.
come up. I just talk about my favorite thing in the world. So in the process of transition, one of the natural things we're going to have is the transition of our rate structure. And this is a massive piece of it because we're going to go from our current tariff to a new tariff. So just for the sake of everybody, you be patient with me. When we talk about tariffs, we're talking about, I've been in the electric utility industry for 30 years, so I banter around acronyms and everything else. And I have friends of mine look at me and say, I have no idea what you just said. So when we talk about tariffs, just to refresh, we're talking about the combination of rules, regulations, the rates, the fees, and the charges that are all associated with the delivery of energy and related services. So it's the whole package of things. Rates are a piece of that, but there's also the rules and regulations and all the conditions that come with that. So it's kind of a package when we talk about it. Right now, we have our existing tariff our existing tariff annually gets approved with the budget, and we go ahead and we approve it for the next year, just as we approve, at the same time, we approve the budget for the next year. So we currently have a tariff in place as we speak that governs all those conditions, that governs all of our rates, and we have that in play, and that tariff needs to stay in place up until the time the customers make that transition from our current rate structure into the retail retail electric provider. So we have we'll actually in the course of the transition month, we'll actually have two tariffs in effect at the same time. So as customers roll off from one, as they get their bill and they roll off from the existing tariff into the new, they make that transition, and you're just going to have that transition all through the month. So what we'll be asking for is during the current budget process this year, we're going to ask for the board to approve our existing rate tariff and make it effective for next fiscal year, because we're going to cross into next fiscal year. So we'll ask for our existing tariff to be in effect so that customers can carry over into that up to the time that they move into the new tariff. Now, the new tariff is going to be what we'll look for to be effective also on October 1st, 2023, so that we have two tariffs in place for that transition. So just to talk about that piece of it. And when we talk about the new tariff, it's going to include all these chapters, and I'm just pleased that there's no Chapter 7 in here. It stops at 5, which is a good thing. So there's chapters 1, 3, and 4, and what are these chapters? These are the ones that ERCOT and the PUC have in place to talk about definition of terms of service, the general rules and regulation for you as a service provider, and then also and then number 4 is talking about the rules and regulations to allow competitions or competitors into your market, and what rules do they have to play by. For us, and part of this too, are going to be chapters 2, and that just governs our service territory. So we have our current service territory that we have in place. And then importantly, where I'm going to drill this down to is kind of the where are we. We'll have chapter 5 that talks about the new service rules and customer protections that will apply to as we make the transition into the new world. And that's going to be, I know I'll call them out. So Michael Weingart's he's running point on chapter 5. Even though my name's on it, he's running the rules and customer protections component on it, which all gets us down to the topic of the day, and that's going to be our new distribution system rates and the discretionary rates that come across it. So the distinction between those two, the distribution system rates apply to all of our customers, and that's just the cost of how much does it cost for somebody else to transmit across our line to grab their energy and deliver it to the customer, and that applies to all customers. The discretionary rates and fees are charges that are usually created and driven by a specific customer. So if I want you to come out and test, so if I want you to come out and build an underground line for my new system, that's going to be part of the system. That's going to be part of what we would provide as a delivery company. But it would be a charge specific for me, so that you folks aren't paying for my particular service. So we call those discretionary fees. So Joe's going to come up and just one more thing I wanted to mention real quickly. When we talk about the tariffs, anytime you talk about a tariff structure, it has specific goals associated with it. And obviously, as a utility, the most important thing is these rates recover your cost of service. You're trying to cover how much does it cost you to provide that service and ensure that your rates, based on a forecasted load, will recover those rates for your utility. The second thing you need to have is that these rates are going to get us into the market. So we're making a jump into the market. So these rates are going to facilitate us getting into the market. And one thing that we're trying to do, and we had a commitment, and Joel had us make a commitment to, and that is we're going to try to look much like the other players in the market in terms of the structure of the rates, and then really where do we fall with our rates. So we're just trying to look at how do we compare to the other utilities, and Joe's going to cover that. Two things that are going to be really important are going to be costs that we have going into a retail electric retail competition that other utilities, for the most part, are not burdened by. One is going to be they don't have hold harmless fees associated with it. So that's the $22 million a year that we have to pay out. That has to get baked into our rates. So that's going to be a disadvantage to us, but it will fall off in January of 2027 when the hold harmless falls off. That goes away. Opportunity for the board to look at our rates at that time. The second thing is our transition costs. So these are the costs specific to us for making that transition. There's two components. One is a purchase power agreement we got for wind generation. The other thing is going to be for the debt service associated with our settlement of the partial requirements agreement. And the debt service, this total of those two combined is about $17 million a year worth of burden. So those two things alone, that amount of money, or that $39 million, is an amount of cost that we have to recover in our delivery rates every year. And over time, those begin to fall off. You'll find that we do match up with our competitor. We do match up with the market. We are on the higher end of the market. Once some of those start to fall off, we really do start to drift more to the middle or even on the lower end of that. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand this off to Joe, who's going to...
Mr. Harvey, before you hand it off.
Absolutely, sir.
Couple of questions.
Sure.
Just a point of clarification. I think I know the answer to this, but temporary service, new service for construction, that's with the provider, whoever that developer or company picks? That's no longer LP&L, correct? Let's say I'm putting in a new home.
Yeah.
A set of homes.
Correct.
I have to call a service provider. I no longer call LP&L. So that's not included in any of these?
That's correct.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
I wasn't clear on that. I thought that was the case, but thanks.
Yeah. The other thing,
They will work with us for new construction,
Correct.
for the lines that we have put in.
for the lines. Okay. So is that included in any of these discretionary rates?
Those will be included in the discretionary rates and fees.
Oh, okay. That's.
And those will, some of them will have a set rate, but on construction charges, it'll be as calculated. So it just depends on what they're asking for and how far.
Okay.
And Harvey, that's to the contractor, correct?
Correct.
To the contractor building it, it'll be the one handles that, and then, I guess, in 9 months when the house almost.
Or it could be,
that's
or it could be us. I'm going to let Joel step in here for a second.
Trying to make sure that we understand the question, because that's very pertinent with all the growth that we've got. Any new developer that wants to expand or build a new subdivision, for example, is that kind of where you're going?
Yes.
They're going to come directly to us and work with us on getting all that done. We'll install all the infrastructure. As they need temporary power, they're going to have to make sure that they have an REP, because that's who they're going to be buying the power from, but we'll be doing all the work to get that done.
Okay.
And for the most part, they'll be working direct with us, but that's kind of where those discretionary fees come in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm clear.
I think I know a little bit about those areas enough to be dangerous on that part of it, so it's good for them to step up. Other questions, though?
Well, back to that, same question. If you're building one, the person who owns the property, though, just like whenever we set up to build new locations or things like that, we're the ones that have to contact LP&L, not the actual contractor.
I would think so, correct?
On an individual, sorry,
Go
Joe, on
ahead.
an individual
Sorry.
basis, 'cause I think it's a good point. It's who's going to be.
Typically, the contractor would get in touch with us.
I just know on the last deal we've done, I had to contact for the contractor.
Okay. Well, they may ask for assistance on this, but my experience is usually the contractor
comes in
will
with it.
manage that soup to nuts for you.
Other questions? All right, I'll let Joe come up and talk about the next piece.
And thanks to Harvey for teeing this up for me. And again, so I apologize. We saw some of these slides last month, but I want to make sure that it's imperative to know where our actual cost and our O&M goes to, and our purchase power cost. So again, our change from our current structure that we have to versus the retail market is going to change for us. Right now, we're currently a vertically integrated company, and we'll essentially transition to a poles and wires company. Means that the O&M, the revenue requirement is to maintain what we have and to pay the staff to maintain that. So that's pretty much, so you can see that that's approximately always 1/3 of your bill. The 2/3 of your bill, which is the actual energy charge, that's what we're passing on to the reps. So reps is going to purchase the energy. So all the hedging, all the purchase power we buy right now, that will be transitioned off to the rep. The rep will take control of that, and we'll just charge them for the poles and wires used to deliver that energy to their house. So that's pretty much the main thing of this slide again. So the reason for the change as well, the purchase power was the most volatile, part of our budget. That was about $228 million annually for purchase power costs. That dwindles down to $58 million. So you can see the risk that we took every year purchasing $228 million worth of purchase power. And it was all natural gas driven. So it was a pass through to the customer. There was no markup on that. So all that we pay for purchase power in the market is just passed on to the customer through the PCRF, the power cost recovery factor. And again, so moving forward, as a utility, we're just going to be more focused on operational costs and maintaining our poles and wires, transmission and distribution as well. Again, this is just kind of the structure. We want to show you our current rate tariff versus our distribution system charge. So it's pretty much the same. As you can see, the only thing going forward is now our purchase power costs are falling off, and the stranded cost, which is the transition charge. And I'm glad Harvey got ahead of that, because that's a big deal for us going forward. We have DEP, like he said, with Elk City. We still have Elk City purchase power costs, and then we have the DEP associated, the $60 million distribution, the SPS settlement payment of $77.5 million. All that is considered a stranded cost or a transition charge. Again, we're new to this market, so if you think of all these IOUs back in 2002, they had the same thing. They had transition charges moving into this market, but they've been there so long that those have tailed off. And just like ours, in the future, these transition charges will either reduce or they'll tail off, because we're actually a participant in the market now. But I wanted to highlight that transition charge. Again, our revenue requirement totals $146 million. The reason I wanted to put that up there is because whether we had our old rate structure or new rate structure, we still needed $146 million. It's just the mechanism of how we're getting to the $146 million. So there hasn't been an increase in our budget. It's still $146, whether we're in the ERCOT market, the retail market, or the OSPS market. So that stayed the same. I wanted to make sure that we understood that there's no extra revenue we have to get just because we've transitioned to the retail market. That has stayed consistent at 146. Again, as Harvey mentioned, we have a whole harmless payment of $22 million. So, really we're collecting 146, but in year 2027, it's up to the board and council you can reduce those revenues to only collect $124 million. So that will be our revenue requirement, because we'll be getting that $22 million back to us. So there is rate relief for the customers in the future. This is just the cost of doing business currently moving into the ERCOT market. So what we try to focus on, and as Harvey mentioned, we want to be as comparable as we could to the market. Of course, we're in the high end of some of the rates, but we try to smooth transition our way into there. And it's just without that transition charge, if you bake that transition out of a lot of our costs, we would be actually really competitive in the market. It's just that portion of the bill that we have to collect currently that's really pushing us above and beyond other ratepayers right now. Again, this is the current rate structure versus the distribution system charge rate structure. We just wanted to show you this. I'm not going to go through every one, but that just shows you our current tariff. We just wanted to make sure that y'all recognize that everything that's our current rate structure, we've transferred it over to the new delivery rate. And this is just was a good check for us, just to make sure that every rate class has been accounted for and has been moved over to the new delivery rate. The major change on this is going to be our general religious services. We used to have just one general religious service rate, and moving to the market, you had to break those up. We do have some large churches here in town that are over 10 kW, so we put some in the small commercial, some in the large commercial based on their uses. So that's pretty much the largest that's the largest change in this delivery rate structure. So I wanted to kick it off with this benchmark. So as you can see, we are the blue color. So we have residential, secondary less than 10 kW, secondary greater than 10 kW, and our primary rate. So We wanted to start off with that to just show you how residential, you can see that we're at about 5.7 cents. So we're right in the middle of Encore, AEP, Centerport, and Texas, New Mexico Municipal Power. The same thing for our secondary, less than 10 kW. Then you get to your large commercials, and that's where it really hit us this year. Again, we went on proxy data. We don't have the full year of AMI data, so this will change as we get AMI data, better AMI data, and so we try to get to a landing place where we thought that these rates were going to land. So you can see the secondary is probably a little higher than we wanted it to be, but again, we have to get to a revenue requirement of 146 million, and if you pull out, the transition charges, we're pretty competitive with all the markets, and we're right in the middle. It's just, again, it's hard to explain that, but it's just the cost of doing business moving into ERCOT. These IOUs that we're comparing ourselves with have been in the market for 10 to 15 years plus, so they don't have all the costs that we have of just transitioning to the market currently right now. With that, any questions on that before I move on? And so I wanted to kind of give you a visual. I know sometimes we get to the numbers and it's a little harder for y'all to keep track. So I thought giving y'all the visual preliminary will kind of let you know that we're in the ballpark of most of the rates, excluding secondary. We're a little higher than everyone, but I'll give you the breakdown of these rate structures going forward. First of all is our residential rate. As you can see, our all-in distribution system rate is 5.7 cents, which is a little higher. But again, another thing to remember is that we have a franchise fee equivalent revenue line item, which is 0.534 cents. And the reason for that is, as we transition to the retail market, we did a transfer to the city of a franchise fee and pilot is equivalent of approximately $15 million annually. So we still, when we went to the retail market, we told the city that we would still make that transfer. So we have to collect that revenue to accommodate that $15 million. And so we broke out that line item on there. Again, those IOUs probably pay about 3% franchise fee when ours totals about 6%, which is 5% franchise fee and 1% pilot. So we got those two numbers, and we came up with a $15 million annual payment that we'll make to the city for the transfer, and it's a transfer to the city on that. Again, there's our transition charge, which is 0.662 cents, and that transition charge is going to stay consistent for every rate class. That is the amount to cover the debt service, the SPS payment, as well as Elk City. Any questions on the residential rate? Okay, moving on is our commercial rate, less than 10 kW. Again, our all-in distribution system rate is 5.525 cents, and the energy portion of that is 4.9 cents. And again, the franchise fee equivalent is 5.3 cents, which stays consistent, and our transition charge is 0.66 on that one. We came in, we're right between AEP Central and Texas, New Mexico Power on this rate, on this class. And again, these are the best information we have with the load data. This is all driven on load data, load factor. So all these rate classes that we do, it's how they utilize the system. They get their fair share of the cost for the delivery rate. Moving on to commercial larger than 10 kW. Again, our all-in distribution system rate is 4.18 cents. Our energy delivery demand charge is $11.61 for per kW. And again, so commercial above 10 kW, they're different from residential and secondary or small commercial customers. They pay for a demand component on their bills. So anytime they're above 10 kW, they'll have a demand charge. And that demand charge is $11.61. So you can see again, and this is just a common practice throughout all the utilities. So you can see that we are right between AP Central and Texas, New Mexico Power again. So that's where we land on that KW charge. And then our all-in rate is 4.1 cents for the KW. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to get a residential customer bill and kind of compare what the LP&L bill currently with our rate structure versus what AEP Central residential costs. So you can see we have less charges. They have, for example, a distribution system charge, a system restoration charge. So they have other line items that we don't have depending on the business that they do. They may have, for example, let's see here, their energy efficiency cost recovery factor. We don't have a rate like that. So our rates are just broken up into our base customer meter charge, our energy delivery rate, of course, your franchise fee and pilot, and your transition charge. But again, so I think the bottom line is that the customer really wants to know what their bottom bill is going to be, what their total bill is going to be. When you open your bill, you look at the total. You really don't look at line item per line item. So I wanted to give you all this comparison and kind of show you what our bill is versus AEP Central Residential. And those are with the current, their winter rates that were established on December 15th. These are the rates that were approved on December 15th by AEP Central. So you can see the overall customer bill for us totals, it's going to be about $64.42 versus their bill about $62.46. Again, this includes your transition charge, which is a heavy component of that. If you were to take this transition charge out, that bill would drop to about $57. So you can see how much lower we would be than anybody else in the market if it weren't for that transition charge on there. So I wanted to bring this to your attention. I don't know, when you get the questions, the customers are concerned about their total bill, not actually line item per line item. So I wanted to show you what this was. So it's $64.42 for us versus $62.46. So there's about a difference of about $1.98 or $1.96 on that bill. And this is per 1,000 kW, which is the average residential consumption annually, or monthly, I'm sorry. Any questions on that? So again, good question on this a little earlier, Mr. Fields. These are discretionary fees, and so what we did is, these are really fees that we already had. We already charged, to priority reconnects, disconnects. We have a late fee. We have the distribution or the cost recovery fees for new construction, as you questioned, Mr. Fields. So those are current fees that we already have, and all we did was transition them to this Section 5 of the tariff. And so they're just labeled differently, different codes, different SAC codes, because that's what the market uses. But all these costs that we've had, that we listed here in the rates, are the current rates or the current charges that we currently charge in our tariff right now. We didn't want to add anything new. We wanted to get into the market and review, have our engineers and staff review this annually, and so the next time we may have some different charges that other market participants use that we don't currently use, that we really need to recoup our costs on. But for this go around, we decided that and made a decision that we would use the discretionary fees that we currently have, and which are miscellaneous fees currently in our tariff. So you'll see them at the very end of our tariff. They're called miscellaneous fees. Now they're called discretionary fees. So like I said, there's nothing new on this list. It's not in our current tariff, and these are just the rates established for us going to the retail market. Any questions on the discretionary fees? And again, with that being said, go ahead.
Go back real
Yes, sir.
Explain to me temporary service.
So our
It was related to the construction that we were talking about earlier. So if somebody's building a house, for example, they'd get temporary service set up so they could run their machinery, their tools and stuff.
Thanks. And we've also with that being said, we grouped in for, projects like, 4th of July. Anytime we got to go out there and establish, put up service like that temporary for just that use, they'll have to find their own rep or be under the city's umbrella to purchase that energy, because we no longer give away free energy, to your point. But we will charge them to go and set up, because it does take time from our staff to go out there, assemble that, and then take it down when it's done as well.
So who pays these fees, like the tampering or something like that? Is that the rep that pays them?
Well, the rep will initiate the bill, but they'll collect that from the customer and then pass that on to us.
Okay, they collect it for us.
Yes, so,
okay.
Yes, ma'am. So what these rates are, what happens is if we see a tampering fee or something, we send the reps this SACO 4 code that's right here. And so it automatically says, okay, they tampered it, they got a $200 charge on their bill. So the rep is the one that will go collect that, but then they transfer that $200 back to us for those fees right there. Yes, ma'am. And then so here's your 22-23 rate schedule. Again, we started back in August developing these rates, and it has been a lot of back and forth with the consultant, and to hit our marks, but it's something that we really wanted to take our time on entering the market and make sure that we were going to charge rates that do fulfill our revenue requirement. You know, we have one shot at, I mean, we can adjust the rates, but we want to make sure that we didn't under-collect at the first time. So this will be something that we can review annually and bring it to the board if any suggestions are made. And you can make mid-year adjustments. If you see that you're under-collecting in some area, you can always adjust that with director's authority and then bring it to the board and council for approval. So again, we presented this first draft to you on February 21st. We're on March 20th right now. So these are the final rates we're proposing. We will have a city council work session tomorrow where we'll bring them this presentation and let them know, you know, the rates as well and where we're at. Then again, I think one of the items coming up next, it will be a special electric utility board to make the decision to approve these for recommendation to city council, which will then go on April 11th. And then these rates will be effective in the fall of 2023 along with our current tariff, which becomes effective October 1st. With that being said, that's all I had on the delivery rates.
So the process is that this is the presentation to the board, this number 11, and then the city council will look at a work session tomorrow.
Yes, ma'am.
Then number 12 is for us to find out when we'll do the final approval.
Yes, that will be the special meeting to approve
Okay,
the
the
final.
special meeting
Yes.
is item number 12.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And again, we don't anticipate to change any of these, but if we do, we will bring y'all the final rates and let you know what changed from today's proposed to the final ones. But we anticipate that these will be the final rates going forward.
So it still gives the city council time to give input?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And for us to do the final, okay.
Yes. That's all I
Do
had.
we need a,
No.
No, we don't. It's just a presentation purposes, yes.
Correct.
So,
That completes number 11, and it hands off the transition to number 12. So, go back. Yeah, anything else on that? Right, so just to clarify, we have the Finance Review Committee meeting that I think we've set for March 28th at 2 p.m., and that's going to be at the Service Center, the Hill, at the Hill. And then the next thing is just what we're looking for here is the board to, there's a couple dates, there's 3 dates on there, March 29th, March 30th, and March 10th, for the board to be able to select a special board meeting, and that's for, to your point, Madam Chair, the approval, basically the recommendation to City Council, the final rates. Oh, we're going to do it here? Okay. There's a correction on the Finance Review Committee meeting. It's going to be here on the second floor. Sorry.
okay, so it'll be here on the 28th at 2.
That's correct.
And then the board needs to decide between the 29th, 30th, and April 10th for its next meeting.
Right, and that would just be, that's basically looking at the final approval of the rates to be recommended to the City Council for approval.
What is the pleasure of the board on those 3 dates? Is there any date that won't, I think you've got someplace, if you can get to the slide that shows those dates.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not available those days in March, but I am available on April 10th.
April 10th for me as well.
April 10th works.
April 10th works for me as well.
Eddie, Solomon, I'm trying to get to mine, I'm sure it's April 10th, that's fine with me. That's the Monday after Easter, but that's certainly fine.
Is there a time? We've got a time range in there, so we're looking for about an
10
hour.
and 2, what is everybody's pleasure?
We're looking for about an hour.
11 o'clock, okay, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock?
Let's do
That's the
11.
only item on the agenda.
Yeah, is 11 better for you? Let's do 11 o'clock on the
Okay.
10th for the special meeting.
Okay.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion, have the meeting on April 10th at 11 a.m. here, I'm guessing.
Is there a second? Is the motion by Mr. Odom, a second by Mr. Davis to have the special meeting on April 10th at 11 o'clock here at the City Council chambers? Oh, yeah, Dr. Ramirez was the second. Sorry, Dr. Ramirez was the second on that. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries 7-0.
Madam Chairman, can I clarify something? At the Finance Review Committee on March the 28th,
At 2 o'clock.
you said, was that at the Hill?
I'm sorry, that will be, actually be on the second floor. I thought it was at the Hill.
I have it on my calendar.
Sorry.
I have it on the Hill, too.
Yeah, I think
Y'all are here.
we found availability here on the
So that
second
was a
floor.
trick. It's here on the 28th.
Yeah.
It's on the second floor. Had lots of those. Okay, so if you're going to the Finance Committee, March 28th at 2 o'clock here, and then the next board call meeting is April 10th at 11 o'clock. That's the Monday after Easter.
That's correct.
Okay, and the motion carries. And you got those first motions, okay? The consent calendar, anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, you're done. Consent calendar, is there anything that a member of the board would like to pull off the consent calendar? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent calendar.
Move to approve the consent items.
Mr. Davis has made a motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Fields. All those approve the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Ivy, is there anything before we adjourn?
No, ma'am.
Everybody's happy campers? Okay, the meeting is now adjourned. It's 1:20.